Hello. Today we're talking about online course design, the 7 principles. And I'm Melanie Clay. To me, the very most important principle of all is the first one, and that is to encourage faculty-student interaction and contact. First of all, let me say that these principles are based on the 1987 7 Principles for Good Practice for Undergraduate Education by the AAHE. Now, these have been adapted into various forms and eventually for online learning. Now, the first principle, I would say that frequent student-faculty contact is absolutely the very most important factor in student motivation and intellectual commitment. In planning your course, you'll want to consider what methods you will use to encourage interaction. First of all, in your syllabus, you'll want to outline basic contact methods and establish protocols for email, voicemail, or other modes of communication. You should also consider offering alternative forms of contact such as phone calls, fax, or face-to-face meetings when that's possible. Another good idea that works well is to establish virtual office hours. These are times when you will be available for online chats, phone calls, or emails. You really need to let your students know what to expect in terms of your response time, and warn them that technical problems beyond your control will usually make the time frame longer. Naturally, you'll want to regularly send messages to the whole class. You'll also might want to hold an orientation session, perhaps even face-to-face, if your students are not spread out all across the country, but it could be an online orientation session. You'll want to hold this at the beginning of the semester. One very important thing to do is to get to know your students as individuals. Refer to them by name and let them know who you are. Share some personal information about yourself. One built-in key to making this all work is to limit your class size, and if that's not possible, then you need to have teaching assistants who can follow up on students who are not participating or appear to be having problems. You also want to provide frequent feedback, and this should come from you, but also you may provide short assignments that allow for students, short assignments and quizzes, that is, to allow students to see if they're getting what they need to out of the materials. Our second one is also important, and that's to encourage student cooperation. Here we're talking about interaction among students, and this has proven to be one of the strongest points of all of online learning. Online learning has opened up communication between students who often help one another to problem solve and share knowledge in ways that go way beyond traditional interactions in a face-to-face classroom. In designing your course, you should come up with activities that promote this kind of cooperation. Use techniques such as peer reviews, chats, of course your bulletin boards, which is absolutely going to be the heart of your course, group projects, and team learning. Encourage links between students by posting their photos and their biographies, and also encouraging them to share phone numbers with each other. At the beginning of your course, you might have students interview each other and then introduce one another. Another good idea is to set up separate discussion boards for personal discussions. Things you need to think about are how often should students interact with each other in your course, and how much time should students be spending on coursework. Number 3, encourage active learning. Online learning is not a spectator sport. When we say this, we're saying that students need to go beyond listening to what the instructor is saying, memorizing it, and spitting it back out. Students need to interact with the materials, think about them, discuss them, and apply it to their daily lives. What are some ways to implement this? Well, pose discussion questions that foster critical thinking and problem solving. Use open-ended questions to encourage extended and wide-ranging dialogue. Again, you could use quizzes that require students to review the content. Ask students to teach their classmates when that is appropriate. And select real-world, relevant assignments that allow students to practice concepts learned. Finally, you might ask your students to reflect on their work through written journals. Number 4. This one seems very obvious, but it's a lot easier said than done, believe me. Because when your course is pretty well designed, it can be very tempting to just set it on autopilot, particularly when the interaction between students is strong and going so well. However, students still need the regular instructor feedback in order to assess their knowledge and their competence. If the class is large, and large is, it's hard to define large, but I would say more than 15 students or maybe even more than 10, then you might consider having team assistants and use them to help with this feedback. You need to return tests, papers, assignments, other graded work within a week. Post grades regularly and hold virtual office hours so that students can discuss their work. Number 5. Emphasize time on task. We all know that technology can make learning more efficient, but it does require diligence in time management. You need to let students know how much time they should be spending on a task and encourage an awareness of the time that they are saving by not traveling to and from class and sitting in the face-to-face class. This time that they're saving should be spent responding to course bulletin boards, completing assignments related to your learning objectives, and doing internet research where appropriate. You need to let students know that time on task is important to their success. Award points for all work and participation in discussion, and require discussion participation. Make assignments enjoyable for students, and this will encourage increased time on task. Finally, explain the consequences of not spending enough time on the course or spending time in an inconsistent manner. Number 6, communicate high expectations. If you hold high expectations for your students, then they will perform well. However, you must be clear in your expectations. Your syllabus should include course goals, performance objectives, grading and evaluation criteria, grading rubrics, and examples of good student work. Or you might want to post outstanding, average, and poor student work examples at a course website or conference area. You should clearly state your expectations regarding quality, quantity, depth, frequency of discussion participation, deadlines, etiquette, and frequency of check-ins. Also, set high standards for yourself and model them. Convey your enthusiasm and your passion for the subject using emoticons when the form of communication is written. Number 7, respect diverse ways of learning. Online learning can be helpful in that it allows students to work at their own pace, and we know that it's a blessing for so many of them. A major way to enhance your online course is to design more than one method of learning for students. This is an example. This presentation you're watching is an example that appeals to the visual and the audio learner, as opposed to someone who likes to read text. You might identify various learning styles by asking students to complete a learning style assessment questionnaire, and these are available on the web, and then asking students or helping them to be aware of their own strengths and preferences. You should also recognize that online classes are not the best learning environment for every student. Finally, as an instructor, you should be sensitive to cultural differences and also appreciate the differences in your students' available resources. Now that concludes our 7 standards, but I think we need to go over one more thing before we finish, and that is the minimum standards for an online course. These are the common elements that all online courses should have, even the most basic. You need to meet ADA compliance. This means that images and links have a place to go for alternative texts. Many of our course management tools such as WebCT and Blackboard are building these in. However, in many cases it may not be enough. Secondly, all student assignments and due dates, as well as tests and test dates, must be explained and posted. All assignment pages should be in printable format. Third, there should be written instructions for every task the student has to perform, whether it's taking tests or quizzes, posting contributions to the online discussions, downloading files and software, or even finding supplementary readings. Next, it must be clearly stated that the instructor commits him or herself to a turnaround time for student email messages, unless the students are otherwise informed. For instance, if you're going to a conference or going to otherwise be away from course access. An acceptable turnaround is normally about 2 days. As far as interactivity goes, depending on the nature of your course, the bulletin board and other discussion mechanisms available should be appropriately utilized to facilitate the learning process. Believe it or not, there are a lot of courses out there that aren't utilizing this most basic and strongest and best learning tool that we have in our online courses. Finally, there must be an approved evaluation instrument associated with the course that provides an opportunity for student feedback on the course and on your performance as an instructor. And this concludes our presentation for today. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you have seen what the basics are and also the standards are that you can use in planning your course. And if you think about it, I think you'll also find that an online course has a lot more in common with a traditional course than we might have thought. Thank you.